So tell me, why do you think, as humans, we struggle to train the mind, but we're quite happy to go and physically work out, but we have this resistance to train this, but that's the difference between the top 15 and everybody else.
So yeah, let's just start deep right away. We're not easing into this at all. So it's really important because there's three things, according to Michael Gervais. He's a sports psychologist that I follow, and I really can identify with the things that he teaches. And he says there's three things that we can train: our craft, which is barrel racing, cutting, roping, whatever. Our craft, our body, and our mind. And the mind, though, while we all understand that it's really important, there's maybe a little bit of uncertainty in how to train it. You can read books that will tell you need to be able to focus. Who cares what anybody thinks, and things like that. But it maybe isn't clear in how you actually train it. So, I think that there's a lot of well-intentioned people that are trying to learn, but there's less resources where you can actually go to learn how to train it. And so that's one of the things that I love doing, is talking to people and deciding, like we know how to train horses, and there's very specific steps you can do.
The process.
Yeah, the process. Yeah, exactly. And that's just why I really enjoy working with people to do that, because there are very specific things that we can, and very specific ways to train it, and things that we can do, and they build off of each other, and it really does make a difference, because like you said, when you get to a top level, everybody's really skilled. They've trained their body and they've trained their craft, and it's how well do you handle stress and pressure, and how resilient are you in the face of defeat, which for most of us, we lose way more than we win, and that's for the people that are successful. Yeah,
well, you do say in your book that physical skill and talent only gets you so far.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
When people that understand the mind. Stevie, when did you start becoming aware of the power of controlling the mind?
Honestly, when I met Ty, he was kind of in the middle of learning so much, and in the middle of taking some courses and reading books, and I was starting a rodeo and running barrels, and so I really didn't know much about it, or I didn't know how important it was. I knew about it, but I really, looking back now, I knew nothing. But hearing him talk, and it was really cool because when he was stepping into it, his passion, it was new for me. So, we could bounce things off each other. He was learning, so he could talk all day long to me about this, and it was new to me as well. And it's a huge part of my mental game today.
What are a couple of tools that Ty has helped you with that you've really that have sort of sat with you, that you use to try and get yourself, block out the competition and just focus on you, I guess, in your run?
More so than my run, probably I would have to say just staying in the game, staying focused. Preparation is one, staying prepared, doing everything I can do to be prepared to win, taking care of my horses, keeping them healthy, myself, just being ready and prepared. And then two, focusing on what I have control over. That's been a game changer, because you can get outside of it thinking, well, what if, or they felt like this, or they've done this, or it's rained, or whatever it is. That's all outside of my control. So to bring myself back to what do I have control over, and that's keeping my horse feeling good, focusing on what I need to do to put myself in a position to do good.
So Ty, what are some examples, or what's an exercise for us that we could do maybe to block that out and just worry, or not worry, just do
yeah,
worry is a terrible word. Just do what we can control.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question, and to just build off of what she's saying. So when you try to learn, so it's learning to focus. Focusing is a mental skill that's trainable. We don't just have focus. We don't just have the ability to think about that one thing or to fixate on that one thing. It has to be developed and it has to be trained. So focus, though, what's cool about focus is there's broad focus, like focusing on the things that are within your control and influence, and then there's narrow focus, like if your hands need to be in a certain way, or you need to look at a certain spot or whatever. So there's broad and there's narrow. So either way, you try to develop it the same way. And it starts, you kind of have to go a little bit before that. And before you can really develop focus, you actually have to train awareness. And when I say awareness, I mean awareness that right here, right now, in this moment, as we sit here or on the back of the horse or wherever, in that moment, we have the opportunity to choose a deliberate response. Whatever it is that we want to do, whether it's an emotional response, it's what we want to focus on, whatever, it is a choice. But we spend so much of our time like in just autopilot. We're just mindlessly being directed by what's going on and just reacting. So we need to have the awareness that right here, right now, I actually get to choose what I'm going to focus on. It's within my power to do it. And so then you start with that. Then from there, there's certain things. So like as Stevie's talking about from a broad perspective, let's say just focusing on what's within our control, really that's one thing. It's us and our response. That is really the only thing that we can control. Now, we have things that we have influence over. Those are horses. Those are other people. Those are whatever. So we can influence them. Do we ever control them? No. They have a mind. Anything that has a mind of its own, you will never have full control over. So we have to understand that. But like what Stevie's saying is we need to be able to be prepared and really identify what we control and what we influence. And so what we do with that is we have to just continuously remind ourselves. It's like self-talk. That's another mental skill. And we always have to be aware of what's happening and be able to remind ourselves through self-talk of what's within my control. And every time you recognize that you're off base and you bring it back, that's when the skill's getting sharpened up every single time.
For sure.
So that's how that works.
Can I touch on that?
Yeah.
So awareness, going back to awareness, I feel like I get asked all the time, well, I black out. What do? I black out in the alley. I black out in my run. I don't think through it. So I always get asked, well, how did you train yourself to do that? So I feel this is a great topic to share because when I first started training and perfecting that in my mind, I had to talk myself through it. My attention span is very short. I get squirreled all the time. Big surprise, I know. So in the beginning, which I still do have to do this, but in the very beginning it was going back to it over and over and over again, telling myself going down the alley, telling myself going to the first barrel, telling myself turning a barrel, like just talking myself through, and I guess that's more self-talk. But going back to awareness, you have to have awareness of where you're focused and what you're thinking about and when. And I feel like in the beginning it was it almost got me to the point where I was getting too intense about it. Right. So I feel like you're going to know when you're at that point to move from that, and habit and muscle memory starts taking over, so you don't have to talk yourself through it quite so much and so intense. But I feel like going back to awareness is a good place to start with that. Being aware. If you're blacking out in the alley, okay, you remember the first barrel, but you don't remember anything after. I'm saying barrel racing because that's all I can correlate to.
That's the idea of it.
So, where you're losing that focus, bringing awareness to it in your run. But what a lot of girls don't think about is when you're practicing, when you're exhibitioning, when you're sitting at home, go through it mentally. Go through it over and over and over again. It's not just when you're making a run. They want to just practice it when they make a run.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So do you write down maybe in bullet points so you can get clarity? You might say, okay, these are the 5 points I want to bring my mind to. So you might say, okay, first barrel or whatever, or first cow, or first reining spin. So you do that, and then do you go through that in your head in the alleyway? Yes,
and for me, riding so many different horses, I have to keep track, and I could do a little better of writing stuff down. He's on me all the time, write stuff down. But I have gotten better to write at least certain words down for each horse. Right. That's going to help me, whether it's drive by or relax or whatever those words are for you in your run. figure that out for you, because everybody's different. What works for me may be a different word or words for you. So that helps, having a specific game plan and routine for each horse and each run. Well, when I go really fast, this happens. Okay, when you go slow, breaking it down too, when you go slow versus fast. So holding it all together mentally and words for what you need for each horse for each run, it gets a little confusing and overwhelming. But writing it down, keeping it simple, sounds silly, but it is very important.
It's not silly at all.
Very important.
I remember reading a book by Maxwell Maltz and Psycho-Cybernetics. And what really helped me with one situation was, is awareness the same as becoming present? Do you think, or is awareness more awareness of where's your mind? Is that what? That's what you're saying, Stevie. What am I thinking?
Yeah, awareness, staying present to me is.
I think it's related, but
it feels the same.
Yeah, it does. It can be the same, but I don't think it is always the same, because when I say awareness, the other thing I can is it's not just about aware of where I am right here, right now. It can also be aware of this is my typical response in a situation, like this is typically what I think about or whatever. So it's related, but I don't feel it's the same.
Okay.
But being present is also another mental skill.
It is, like for me, when I was doing my little bit of rodeoing, I retired unhurt and unheard of, just for the public, okay? But when I did, is becoming, what I got from his book was how to become present, was to feel the bucking chutes, how cold the steel was, and then feel, is the horse hot, is he soft, feel the leather as you're putting the halter on. And that helped me so much, because it made me become present in that situation.
Absolutely.
And breathing, obviously. And it actually changed me nearly overnight.
Wow.
Where it made me just focus. I forgot about the crowd or whoever. It just made, okay, I'm going to feel, maybe with the cutting, feel your saddle, feel your horse, feel your reins. Yep. Just become present.
Yes.
But then, as you say, your mind wants to dart off and go away. So is that because, Ty, the mind loves negativity? I mean, the mind just loves to thrive off negativity, doesn't it? So it just wants to take you to the negative thoughts.
So, I mean, that can be, it's by nature, a lot of us are more pessimistic than optimistic for sure. However, I feel that the mind left untrained is, whether it's positive, thinking about positive or negative things, it's untrained. It's like, I've heard people say it's like a drunk monkey, that just does whatever until we try to put some boundaries around it. So it's not like we ever have everything buttoned up and zipped up all the time. What we're trying to do is train it to have certain times where we say, monkey, sit in this chair and be quiet for the next 10 minutes. And then you can get up and do whatever, so we can't expect it to be perfect all the time. But, so that's just all of us. Like we're not born.
Oh no, I still deal with a lot of that. I mean, I have to gather my focus and what you were talking about, feeling and seeing, and it slows you down to be present and to be aware, because we get so scattered with so many thoughts. And I feel like that just slows it down to be able to focus really on what you need to focus on.
Well, can I add to that? Because I don't want to move on from that, because it's really cool that you said that, because that is, okay, so in that context that you described being in the present, that is absolute awareness. And so that's really cool, because in the present moment is where the high performance happens. Right here. It doesn't happen in the future, and it absolutely doesn't happen in the past. It's right here, right now. So when you are paying attention to those things, it is absolutely bringing you right here, right now. The other cool thing about it is now it's directing your focus on some of these other things. And what you're not thinking about now is what's at stake, what someone's going to think about you, how rank this horse is, how bad these cattle are. You're at the end of your set or whatever, and you think that you might potentially just not even have a chance, or it's the futurity, and there's a lot of money on the line, there's a lot of expectations. So that awareness of feeling the saddle, feeling the stirrups, smelling, hearing, whatever it is it keeps you from thinking about that. So it's almost like a good distraction. And the
Yeah.
key